Hello, my name is Ivan Taylor, and I'd like to talk to you today about some work some colleagues and I have been doing on an exploratory systematics model of the circular economy in Indonesia. I'll start with a little background about the problem. I'll give you an overview of the model that we developed. I'll show how we modeled the proposed policies to implement the circular economy. And I'll also talk about some extensions that we considered to enhance these policies. And finally, I'll have some concluding thoughts. So Indonesia has been accepting the plastic waste from the United States and Australia for many years. And this has created a huge problem in Indonesia, where plastic waste has clogged the rivers and oceans around the islands in Indonesia. So the government decided to try to reduce the marine plastic debris by 70% by 2025. And they wanted to do this by implementing 5 policies. The first policy is reducing overpackaging. The second policy is using innovative recyclable plastic material. The third is substituting materials. The fourth is improving waste collection rates. And the fifth is increasing recycling rates. The goal of our work was to determine whether these policies will be able to achieve the goal. And we built a model that had 6 sectors. We had a sector for the production of single-use plastics. We had a sector for collecting and recycling plastics. We had an environmental sector that involved the waste in the rivers and oceans around Indonesia. And we had a population sector that was using single-use plastics. And we had an economic sector that would determine the price and the costs involved with these production of plastics. Finally, we had a section on well-being, where we tried to bring together all of these aspects into a simple framework. Here is a view of the model in Stella Architect, and you can see the 6 sectors. So here is the production sector for single-use plastics. Here is the recycling and collection sector. Here is the environmental sector. Here is the population sector. Here is the economic sector. And here is the well-being sector. And you can see that these are connected quite significantly. The first policy that we implemented was reducing overpackaging. And we developed this dashboard where we can flip these switches here to turn on the policies. And we have 2 graphical presentations of results. The first on this left-hand side shows the plastic waste over a 20-year period. And this shows the an analysis of the economic health and the ecosystem health with 4 quadrants. And the goal is to try to get into this quadrant where we have improved economic health and improved environmental health or ecosystem health. Now, when we turned on this policy for reducing overpackaging, we found that this did reduce the plastics in the oceans and rivers. However, it had a slight negative impact on the economic health, even though it was a significant improvement in the ecosystem health. So then we introduced innovative recyclable plastic materials, and we found that this had a very marginal impact on the results. Again, we see a reduction in the plastic waste in oceans and river, and a slight decrease in the economic health over the status quo. Then we introduce substituting materials, and again, we see the same sort of pattern in the results. Next, we introduced improving waste collection rates, and here we see a more significant reduction in the waste in the rivers and oceans. However, there's quite a significant reduction in the economic health, because this collection processes require have a significant costs. And finally, we considered increasing recycling rates, and we see that we have this continual process of reducing the waste in oceans and rivers. However, we now have a situation where we go into this zone of negative economic health and negative environmental health, because recycling plants create a lot of emissions, which create problems with the environment. So we introduced 3 new policies, and we found that we first looked at this policy to change the paradigm and get people to stop using single-use plastics. And this it was very difficult to do, so it had a limited impact on the relationships between the economic health and the environmental health. So then we introduced this idea of decreasing new plastic production, and this got us back up to the situation of improved ecosystem health, but reduced economic health. And finally, we brought in the last policy, which was to create large lifespan products. And again, this led us to this situation where we had improved ecosystem health, but reduced economic health. However, we did see a significant reduction in the plastic waste, although it appears that we won't be able to reduce the plastic waste by 70% in 5 years. It will take about 11 or 12 years to get the plastic waste down to 70% reduction. So we can experiment with various policies by changing the intensity of the policies here, or turning them on or off. So we'll just show you some positive results we were able to obtain through our experimentation. And the first thing we looked at was reducing the waste collection. And this reduced the costs of introducing waste collection infrastructure, and but it reduced the amount of waste that's collected, and extended the time it took to get to the 70% reduction of plastic debris in rivers and oceans. But it did get us into this zone of positive economic health and positive ecosystem health. We then looked at possible improvement of this by increasing the recycling rate. And here we see even more economic health and even more environmental health. Now, one of the things that we recognized here is the importance of these three policies that we introduced. So, for example, if we do not decrease the new raw plastic production, then we see that we get a very limited impact on ecosystem health, because we are still using the recycled plastic to produce new plastic production. And then if we don't create large lifespan products, we see that we actually have a reduction in ecosystem health, even though we have a positive economic health. So this shows that the policy combinations are important, and the policy intensity settings are important, and it takes more than just these 5 policies that Indonesia is planning to put in place to resolve the problem of plastic debris in rivers and oceans without affecting the economic health. So in conclusion, we realize that combining environmental and economic aspects of the circular economy is complex, and we need to consider all aspects of this system to avoid unintended consequences. It is possible to improve both the economic well-being and the economic health and the environmental well-being at the same time. But it may not be possible to achieve the 70% reduction in maritime plastic waste by 2025 and also maintain the economic health of the system. If you have any questions or would like to find out more about what we're doing with regards to the circular economy, you can contact me at this email address. Thank you very much for your attention.